The silence in our house used to be a comfortable thing. You know, it was like a warm blanket on a cold night. Maya and I could just sit in the same room, not saying a word, and feel completely connected. But that was before the letters started coming, before the phone calls became a daily ritual of dread. 2 years of marriage, and it felt like we were living in a cage built from our own broken dreams. We had so much hope when we started. We had a small business, a little cafe that was supposed to be our slice of the world, our place, but the world had other plans. And now that dream was a ghost that haunted every room, its laughter echoing in the empty spaces where our furniture used to be. We sold most of it, piece by piece, to keep the wolves at bay. But the wolves were getting hungrier, and I was getting so tired. Maya tried so hard to be strong. She would smile at me over our dinner of instant noodles, her eyes trying to light up the darkness, but I could see the fear in them, a deep, trembling fear that mirrored my own. I worked a soul-crushing job at a corporate firm, a place where creativity went to die, a place I had taken just to have a steady paycheck, a paycheck that was gone before it even hit my bank account. My boss, Mr. Sterling, was a man carved from ice and ambition. He moved through the office like a shark, and you could feel the water get colder when he was near. He had a way of looking at you that made you feel like he knew all your secrets, all your weaknesses, and he found them beautiful. He called me into his office one Tuesday afternoon, the grey light from the window making his office feel like a tomb. He didn't offer me a seat, he just let me stand there, feeling like a schoolboy about to be punished. He leaned back in his huge leather chair, a smile playing on his lips that never reached his eyes. He told me he knew everything. He knew about the cafe, about the debt, about the sleepless nights. He said it like he was commenting on the weather, a simple, observable fact, and then he made his offer. He said he could make it all go away, every last cent of the debt, wiped clean, just like that. He would pay it all off, and in return, he wanted a painting, not just any painting. He wanted the one my father painted just before he died, the lost one, the one they called the artist's shadow, a painting that was supposedly priceless, a masterpiece that vanished after my father's studio was cleared out. Sterling knew my father was a famous artist. He knew I had inherited his talent. He knew I had given it all up. And then he said the words that broke something inside of me. He said, "I don't care if you find it, Jack. I want you to paint it." He wanted me to forge my own father's legacy, to create a perfect, beautiful lie. And he just sat there, watching me, waiting for the desperation to win, waiting for me to say yes. And in that moment, looking at his cold, calculating face, I felt the last of my pride crumble into dust. I felt like a man drowning, and he was the only one offering a hand, even if that hand was attached to the devil himself. I was trapped, a rat in a cage of my own making, and he had just offered me a piece of cheese that was laced with poison. But I was so hungry, so goddamn hungry, that I knew I was going to eat it. I had no choice. We had no choice. I left his office feeling hollow, the weight of his proposition heavier than all the debt in the world, and I walked out into the cold city, knowing that I had just agreed to sell my soul, or what was left of it. I drove home that night, the city lights blurring into a river of gold and red through my tear-filled eyes. Every light was a reminder of a life we couldn't have. Every happy face in a passing car was a stab to my heart. How could I tell Maya? How could I walk into our small, broken home and tell her that the man who was causing us so much pain had offered a way out, but the price was a piece of my father's soul? I couldn't do it. The words were like lead in my throat, so I swallowed them, and when I walked through the door, I put on a mask, a smile that felt like it was cracking my face. Maya was there. She had made an effort. She had lit a candle and put on our favorite old record, a little attempt to find some normalcy in the chaos. She came to me and wrapped her arms around my waist, her head on my chest, and she asked me how my day was. And I lied. I said it was fine, just another day. And as I held her, I felt a chasm open up between us, a vast, dark space that was filled with my secret. That night, after she fell asleep, I went down to the basement. It was cold and damp, a place we used for storage, filled with boxes of memories from a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. But in the corner, I saw my old easel, covered in a thin layer of dust, and next to it, a portfolio of my father's sketches. My hands were shaking as I pulled them out. The paper felt fragile, like the memories themselves. I looked at his work, the confident, powerful lines, the way he captured light and shadow, and a wave of grief so powerful it almost brought me to my knees washed over me. I remembered him standing behind me, his hand on my shoulder, guiding my own hand on a canvas, telling me, "Jack, the only thing that matters is the truth. Paint what you feel. Paint what is real. Never, ever copy. Never lie." His words were a ghost in the damp air of that basement, a condemnation of the choice I had made. But I was desperate. A desperate man will do desperate things. I set up the easel, my movements mechanical, detached. I found a blank canvas, a relic from my own abandoned dreams, and I unpacked the paints I hadn't touched in years. The smell of turpentine and linseed oil filled the small space, a smell that was once my whole world. Now it just smelled of betrayal. I stood there, in front of the blank canvas, a brush in my hand, and I felt nothing but a profound, aching emptiness. I was a soldier about to go into battle, but I was fighting myself. I was about to desecrate the memory of the man I admired most in the world, all to save the little life I had built with the woman I loved. It was the ultimate paradox, a sacrifice that felt like a sin, and I dipped the brush into the black paint, ready to begin my work as a thief, a liar, a forger. I was no longer Jack, Maya's husband. I was a tool, a weapon in the hands of a monster. And the first stroke I made on that canvas felt like a tear falling from my father's eye, a tear of shame and disappointment, and I knew, right then, that a part of me had died in that cold, dark basement, a part of me I could never get back. The days bled into weeks, and the secret became a living, breathing thing in our house. It sat with us at the dinner table, it slept between us in our bed. It was a constant, suffocating presence. I would come home from my soulless job, and I would immediately retreat to the basement, to my hidden world of lies. Maya would ask me where I was going, and I would mumble something about needing to be alone, about needing to think, and I would see the hurt in her eyes, a flicker of doubt that was growing into a wildfire. She started to notice things. She would find a speck of Prussian blue on my collar, a smear of cadmium yellow on my wrist, and she would ask me about it, and I would lie. I'd say I must have brushed up against something at the office, a flimsy, pathetic excuse that we both knew was a lie. But she wouldn't push, she would just nod, her face a mask of quiet acceptance, but her silence was louder than any accusation. Our conversations became stilted, awkward. We were two actors playing the roles of husband and wife, but the script had been lost, and we were just improvising, badly. The intimacy we once shared was gone, replaced by a careful, cautious distance. I couldn't touch her without feeling the weight of my betrayal. I couldn't look at her without seeing the suspicion in her gaze. And then Sterling started visiting. He would show up at our door under the guise of being a concerned boss, bringing a bottle of expensive wine we couldn't afford, or a gift for Maya, a beautiful silk scarf that felt like a brand on her skin. He would walk into our home as if he owned it, his eyes scanning everything, a predator surveying his territory. He would talk to Maya, charming her, smiling at her, while he would look at me, a look of pure, unadulterated ownership in his eyes. He was reminding me, without saying a word, that he held all the power, that he owned my debt, and now he owned my secret. He was enjoying this. He was savoring my helplessness, and I would stand there, a silent, smiling fool, while he poisoned my home, my marriage, my life, one visit at a time. Maya tried to be polite to him, but I could see she was uncomfortable. She could feel the slime that coated his every word. After he left, she would ask me why he was so interested in us, why he was being so kind, and I would have no answer, or at least, no answer I could give. The lies were piling up, a mountain of deceit that was burying us alive, and I was starting to forget what the truth even sounded like. I was losing myself in the fog of my own creation, and the worst part was, I was dragging Maya down with me. The painting was almost finished, a perfect, beautiful replica of my father's lost masterpiece, and every day I worked on it, I felt a piece of my soul chip away, until I was just a hollow shell, a man going through the motions, a ghost in his own life, and I knew that something had to break, soon. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday, the sky weeping a cold, relentless tears that matched the storm raging inside me. I had been in the basement for hours, putting the final touches on the forgery, the last brushstroke, the one that would make it perfect, the one that would complete my betrayal. I was so lost in my work, in the twisted concentration it required, that I didn't hear the basement door creak open. I didn't hear the soft footsteps on the wooden stairs. I only felt a sudden, cold chill, and I looked up, and there she was, Maya, standing at the bottom of the stairs, her face pale, her eyes wide with a horror so profound it took my breath away. She was staring at the painting, at the beautiful, terrible lie I had created, and then her eyes slowly moved to me, and in that moment, the silence in the room was deafening. It was filled with all the things I hadn't said, all the lies I had told, all the secrets I had kept. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just stood there, her body trembling, her gaze fixed on the canvas, and then on me, and I saw it all in her eyes, the confusion, the dawning realization, the disbelief, and finally, the soul-crushing pain of betrayal. She took a step closer, her hand reaching out to touch the edge of the canvas, her fingers tracing the familiar, yet alien, brushstrokes. "Jack," she whispered. My name, a broken thing on her lips, a question, an accusation, a prayer, all at once. I couldn't speak. The words were trapped. I was a statue, frozen in the spotlight of my own damnation. She looked from the painting to the portfolio of my father's sketches, lying open on a nearby table, and the pieces clicked into place. The whole ugly, sordid story laid bare in the cold, damp light of our basement. "It's his," she said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "You're painting him." And then the dam broke. The tears she had been holding back for months finally began to fall. Silent, scalding tears that cut tracks through her makeup. "Why?" she choked out, her voice cracking with the weight of her pain. "Why would you do this? Why would you lie to me? What is this, Jack? What have you done?" And I just stood there, the monster she was seeing for the first time. The man who had sold his father's memory, who had shattered her trust, who had destroyed everything we had, all for a fistful of dollars. I had nothing to say, no excuse, no justification. There was only the truth, a truth so ugly and so painful that I knew it would be the end of us. I watched the woman I loved, the woman I had done this all for, break apart in front of my eyes, and I knew that the debt I owed to Sterling was nothing, nothing compared to the debt I now owed to her, a debt I could never, ever repay. The rain hammered against the small basement window, a frantic, desperate rhythm, and in the suffocating silence that followed her question, I knew that our story, our beautiful, tragic story, had come to its final, terrible chapter, and the ending was entirely in her hands.